Welcome back to Way of the Wrench, and on today's very special episode, we have all of our PC parts so that we can put together our wicked awesome gaming computer. We're gonna build ourselves a little pull-out shelf so we can work on it from the back of the vpin, and we've got a locking door that we're gonna put on the back of the cabinet too. So, like somebody would say with a mustache, let's get her done. All right, now that we have all of our PC parts, and thank you very much, Santa, you are too kind. Black Friday. So now that we have to set up our PC. Now, before we do that, I want to make a locking back door as well as a pull-out kind of drawer for the PC. And rather than go into Way of the Wrench detail on that, I will redirect you to go watch how I hung the doors with hinges on the back box video, link above, and in great detail how to do the pull-out shelf or drawer for the decasing of a PC. I will send you to that link as well. So for this, I think we're just going to do a montage. Cue the montage! Nice. Sick. Let's get this in the cabinet now. Nice. That is very slick looking. And you can teach an old dog new tricks. I turned the brackets for the hinges inside this time because I did have a little more room because we had to clear this raised lip for the door. So now I don't have that taking up space inside the cabinet. And there is, you know, a good inch and a half clearance underneath here. So there's lots of room for some kind of anti-vibration matting that I bought for the last build. So we'll put that underneath so we can prevent some of the vibrations going to the PC. All right, off camera, I think I'm going to be taking this out, stripping everything off and sanding and painting. And we'll see you in a bit so we can figure out where all of our computer parts are going to go. Now that we've got this all painted and we got our computer parts, let's figure out where this is all going to go inside of our cabinet. So the first thing you're going to do is take your motherboard out and start installing the components that go into your motherboard. Things like your CPU, your M.2 SSD drive, and your sticks of DDR5 RAM. Now, as you can see, this has already been installed by the elves at Memory Express, and they did this for free of charge. And they even updated my BIOS, which is another thing we'll talk about. Now, if you haven't done that on yours, it's not a big deal. Let me talk you through it. All right, now to install your RAM, you should really look up your motherboard's manual and take a look at which slots they want you to put it in first. Now on this one, it's actually stamped right into the board here. They want you to use the A2 and the B2 slot first. And then if you're adding additional RAM, those will go into the A1 and B1 slots. Now to install your RAM, all you do is make sure that when you go to put it in the appropriate slot, there is a little notch cut out here. So make sure that it lines up with the piece of plastic in the slot. If not, you may have to turn this around. In this case, it wants it like this. And you just make sure these tabs are pulled out to the side. Line it up, make sure it's carefully aligned, and then you just push down until you hear the clicks. Like that. And that is in, and do the other one the same. And to install your CPU, there's a little bracket here. You just push down on it and the lever arm comes up. It allows you to swing this kind of clamp over. And then before you put your CPU in, there's going to be this plastic piece in here that kind of just warns you to make sure that you have the right chipset. In this case, an LGA 1700. Remove that. Very carefully take your CPU and line it up so that the little triangle on the CPU is in the same corner where it is on the bracket. And when you go to put this in, really make sure that you are not putting any force. It should just kind of almost drop in and be aligned. It does have some notches in there to make sure that it doesn't go in the wrong way. And then when you have that all okay, you're going to put this back down. And then you're going to clamp this in position. And then just make sure it levers down underneath so it'll hold its place. And that's it. Okay, to install your M.2 SSD drive, there is a side with a little half circle. That's going to go to where this little toggle clamp is. And the other side is going to clip into the motherboard. And it only goes one way because once again there's a notch, so just match it up. And it kind of gets put in at a slight angle, should just kind of clip in. And it kind of hangs like a little diving board. And then what you're going to do is push down on it, make sure it goes in underneath the clamp, and in this case it just popped in place, but you have to swivel this little toggle clamp sometimes to make sure that it stays put. Okay, and then if your M.2 SSD drive has one of these heat sinks, peel off the sticker if you need to, and then slide this past this little clip for the video card, and this tab goes into that little slot right there, slides over, and then there's a little screw here that you tighten down to your motherboard. Okay, next step up is we're going to take these standoffs and we're going to install them onto the motherboard so that we can mount this to the actual wooden board itself. And I'm going to use every single one, especially the ones in the middle, because there is a big chunky video card on here and I don't want this motherboard to be flexing too much. So go ahead and put these in. Now at this point, if you're going water cooling, there is a bracket that has to go in underneath the motherboard, so make sure you grab and install that first. So it should be in here. And that's this guy right here. With your motherboard flipped upside down, you put the bracket and put it in these 4 holes around where the CPU would be. Now, this doesn't want to go in, and it's because this is designed to be adjustable for different types. So for ours, for the LGA 1700, you have to pop these bolts out. You should just pull them out till you hear a little click on all 4. And then put it in. There we go. Now you're just going to basically hold on to that as you flip it over, and then we're going to put some stuff on the other side. Now you're going to have to follow the instruction manual for your all-in-one cooler, but in my case it says it wants me to find the spacers that have 1700 stamped on the outside. So those 4 go onto the posts of that bracket sticking up through the motherboard. Then it wants us to install these specific brackets in a certain orientation for our chipset, and we have to take off this little plastic cover here. And once you take this cover off, be very careful because right underneath it is your thermal paste. And so you don't have to redo it, it's already been put in. And then very carefully install the water pump down onto those bolts and install the little thumb screws. Now you may want to take a look at where these hose ends need to be so that they can have some clearance. So for example, they can't go to the back here, that's going to hit. So I'm going to put them to this side closer to the SSD drive. And make sure that this goes on nice and smoothly so you're not having to redo your thermal paste. And maybe have a little bit of consideration of where your actual radiator fan is going to be. Because that has to be positioned somewhere on this board as well. The video card is up next. Now once again, look at your motherboard and figure out which PCI Express slot they want you to put the video card. In this case, they want it the closest one to the CPU, so we're going to put it in this one here. Now all you got to do is make sure that this clamp is opened up and pulled to the back so that when you pop in the card, it'll click and seat itself. Now with these video cards, I've taken them out of like 10-year-old computers and still seen the plastic on it, and sometimes it's not a big deal, sometimes it's just protecting the cosmetics, sometimes it's literally like covering over some of the cooling. So once you are ready to put this in, you can peel this plastic back, make sure you're not going to affect any of the cooling or any of the functions of this motherboard. There's also a little protective plastic clip that comes off the PCI Express connections, so make sure that's all off. And just give it a final check. Make sure there's no plastic over any of the cooling spots. All right, there we go. Now, once again, if you look at the PCI Express connector, it only goes in one way because of the little slots here. So just make sure it's oriented the right way. And then when it's in the right spot, just give it a little push down on it and listen for that click on that connector. Now this is a massive video card and you can see it's already kind of leaning, so we're gonna have to figure out some kind of support mechanism for this, but we'll do that a little bit later. All right, now that we have our ATX power supply on here, we now have to spend some time and figure out where we want to mount this stuff so that it works in our cabinet. So let me show you some things that you need to be aware of when you're figuring out your position. First thing to think about is I would make sure that all of your HDMI and display ports are facing the back of the cabinet. That way you can easily plug stuff in and out, as opposed to having it on the back and not being able to see and having to use a mirror or something to plug them in. And I wouldn't have these facing the sides because every time you want to pull out this drawer, you're going to have to either unplug them or they're going to get hit. Now the other thing is, how close do you put these physical ports to the back of the cabinet? You do have a bulk of the housing for your HDMI cables, and you can't just bend them 90 degrees. And if you put this right to the back of your cabinet, the wall of the cabinet is there. So you're gonna have to space that back further, or make sure that this is further away from the cab so you have room to get that 90 degree in there so the cables can come out and not get pinched. Okay, the next thing to think about is where the cold air is coming from and the hot air leaving. Now, ultimately you are going to be limited because you're trying to get this stuff all on a board here. So I'll just show you kind of my process and the way I've laid it out here. So if I put my ATX power supply like this and my radiator up at an angle like that, I can have cold air coming from the cabinet at the front, getting sucked in, and hotter air coming off the radiator. at an angle, so it's going to kind of kick the hot air up and away from the PC, and it's almost going to be in line with the exhaust on the back of the cabinet. My GPU is going to get cold air from the side here and then blow out hot air up and to the back. And the only way I could figure out everything fitting on here is if I put my power supply here, I'll get cold air coming from here and then hot air kind of pushed to the side here and pushed back to the back of the cabinet. Now I could mount this to the side like this, get cold air and hot air going directly to the back, but then I've got all the wires that have to get connected to everything here from the PSU that are going to be in the way. So I'm going to get away from it from doing that this way. So you're going to have to mess with your components. This took me about half an hour to figure out where this is all going to go, and I had some special 3D printed parts to help me mount it on this, which I'm going to show you now. One of the only issues I can see with this setup is the width of this radiator is actually ½ inch longer than the opening for the back of the cabinet. So when I pull the drawer open, if the whole board comes out, I might start touching on the radiator. However, that's almost the entire board out of the cabinet before that, so I don't see that being too big of a deal. If I ever want to take this entire thing and board completely out, I will have to undo 2 screws to get the radiator to kind of come off, and then I can remove it. But in most cases, this is just going to stay in the machine, and it should be totally fine and still open up and close totally fine. All right, so to mount this radiator, I found these 3D printed brackets and printed them up, and the idea is the bracket will get mounted to the board like that, and then where this 45-degree is, it'll get mounted to the back of the radiator. So I just got to put one on either end, and then the fans won't be able to go from underneath. They're going to go after from the top, and so we want to be kind of cognizant of where the fans are blowing hot air. So once again, if you look at the fins on the fan and spin it in the direction where it would be scooping air, and it'll tell you which way this air is going. So air is going this way and out that way. So if we want the hot air coming off the back this way, then we're going to have to mount them like that. Now, it's too bad we couldn't have it the other way because they probably look a lot prettier with the RGB, but they'll still look pretty cool like that as well. All right, time to fix this sloppy GPU play with a nice 3D printed bracket. Oh yeah, nice and solid now. All right, time to start plugging in some connections. Now from our all-in-one cooler, there's a little 3-pin connector. That is going to go to your CPU OPT plug. Connect that. In your all-in-one kit, you're going to have a 4-pin connector that has some daisy chains male ends on the end. This is so that you can daisy chain the power to your actual fans that are on your radiator. Now this plug is going to go right next to the previous one where it says CPU fan, and then go ahead and plug your individual fans into the other ends here. For now, don't worry about the mess. Once everything's plugged in, we can take a look at how we're going to pretty this all up. All right, last connection from your all-in-one pump is this one. It's a 3-pin, and it is a 5-volt D in ground. This is for your RGB lighting, and it also has a jumper on here to be able to daisy chain to the next fan. So this female one, we're going to plug in right here where it says GDV. Okay, and from the male connection there, we're going to daisy chain this to the next fan, which uses a female end. Make sure it's lined up with GD and 5 volt. And then once again, it has another male one. So you just jump to the next one and then do the next one. Right, next up, you're gonna need one of these front panel wiring kits. And basically it's got 2 switches for power on off and reset. And you got 2 LEDs to show whether power is on the PC and whether you got power to your hard drive. And then it also comes with the female connections that you need to connect to your motherboard. So let me show you where these go. So you can see on the female connectors, it's literally labeled with where these connections have to go. And if it matters, it's even got the polarity on it. So one by one, you have to plug them into your motherboard. All right, so somewhere on your motherboard, it's gonna say F panel, that's for your front panel connections. And you're gonna see a bunch of these little male pins sticking out, and usually a little chart for what means what. So right here, these 2 pins up here are for positive and negative for your power LED. And then right next to that, the next 2 pins are positive, negative for your power switch. The ones underneath on the next row is positive, negative for your reset switch button. And then right next to it is your power and negative for your hard drive light. So just simply make those connections on your motherboard. Time to start powering up everything from the power supply. So first we're going to start with the motherboard. We've got an 8-pin connector that says on there ATX. You put the other end in one of the 8-pin CPU connections. Okay, then you've got a 24-pin connector that needs power. This one's a big one. Make sure you push on both sides evenly and it goes all the way in. And then the other end splits up and goes into these 2 connections here. All right, last power connection is to our video card. Now, there is a splitter that comes with your video card in case you have an older power supply, and you're gonna have to supply 3 PCI Express power connections to it. However, I've got a new 3.0 version ATX power supply, and it uses these new 12-pin sockets and these wires that can handle up to 600 watts. So we only have to use the 1 connection on here. And then just hook that up to the power supply, the 12-pin connector. And then this is for your Wi-Fi, is your Wi-Fi antenna. And it could be just put on a kind of sticky or Velcro tab, wherever you want. And I did notice that this thing's magnetic. So I might even just kind of place it somewhere like on the power supply off to the side of the fans, and that might be simply good enough. If not, I'll Velcro it down. And then the connectors simply screw on here. And of course we've got our AC cord to plug into our power supply. Now that everything's plugged in, it's probably a really good time to start organizing this and making it look a little prettier. Now, a couple things to note. You don't want any of these wires engaging into where these fans are, so make sure it's clear of that and not blocking any kind of vents or anything like that for airflow. And then a little trick to make this look a little neater is if you've got some split loom, this comes in different sizes and diameters, and you basically can just tuck in the wires and it can help pretty this up quite a bit. So off camera, I've installed these drawer slides back onto the painted brackets, and I actually moved the whole assembly 2 inches back from this back wall. That way I've got a little more room for my HDMI cables, and if I have any cables that have to go from the left to the right to where the power is, it can have a little runner channel here now for that as well. And I made sure that I did not hit the sub at the back. So, and doing this also allowed me to still get this in and out the whole computer PC drawer if I need to. So now let's put it in. Right now, in order for us to check if our BIOS needs updating and installing Windows and all our drivers, I'm going to quickly hook up just to the back glass monitor. It'll be actually a lot easier for me to film. And while we're at it, we're also going to test this master power strip. So if we call the computer the master and plug in this into one of the controlled sockets, that monitor should turn on when that PC turns on as well. So let's hook that all up. All right, here we go. First power on. I'm going to hit the power button and hopefully no big black poof of smoke. And then I'm going to spam the delete key on a keyboard here, and that should get us into BIOS. Here we go. There's absolutely nothing. What did I miss? First thought is the actual ATX power supply is not switched on the back here. Let's try that again. There we go. Sweet. Okay, spam and delete. Got a power light to the motherboard. Whoo, there we go. Our master slave power strip is also working, so it turned that on. And we are into our BIOS. Sweet. Let me zoom in on this and show you how we can check stuff in here. All right, from the main screen on the Gigabyte motherboard anyway, you'll have to look up how you do it for yours. We're going to look up for our BIOS, what version. So we have to go to advanced mode, go up there with your mouse, click on it. And then we're going to go to System Info. And then right here, we've got BIOS version F12, and the latest date was September 28th, 2024. So now let's go look on another computer and go to the actual Gigabyte site and see what the last version is. And if this is up to date, then we're good to go. If not, we're going to have to update the BIOS. Okay, on another computer that's got internet, so we can see what the actual BIOS is currently. So, okay, and from their actual website, we're going to scroll down their driver list until we get to BIOS. And then these are the current BIOS settings. So, F12, that's what we have in ours, and September 27, 28, 2024, that is what I've got on my computer. So we have the latest update, and there's no need to do the BIOS. So the guys at Memory Express did do it, and they have the current one in here. So sweet. Okay, and if you don't have this, then you're going to want to download this, put this on an empty USB stick, unzip it, and then go ahead and put it in the computer and load up your new computer and go into BIOS and look for something that says Q Flash. Hit that, and then you'll be able to see that file in that USB stick. Select that, and then go ahead and flash your motherboard. When it does this, it may take a long time, up to 10 minutes, and it might turn your computer on and off a bunch of times. Let it do its thing till it is literally sitting there for a long time and not doing anything. All right, now on another computer that has internet, you're going to install a USB key. Make sure it has 8 gigabytes or more in it, and I would just blank everything out of it or format it. And what we need to do is go to your internet, and you're going to type in something like Windows 11 installation media USB, and then you're going to go to the official Microsoft.com website and click on the download Windows 11. Okay, and then scroll down to where it says create Windows 11 installation media. Make sure that it is the right one for you. So this is for x64 processors. Click download now. And then once that's downloaded, you can go to your downloaded file. Okay, and then from your download folder, just double left click on the media creation tool. Click yes. Okay, basically read all through this, click accept. Okay, make sure it's your language you want, which edition. We want Windows 11. Click next. And then we're going to do it on a USB flash drive, and it reminds you need to have 8 gigs. Click next. And then it asks which one you're going to put it on, so you can make sure that it's the one that you want. Now this is going to take a long time, so I'm going to just come back once it's done. All right, when you get to here, this is all done, you can click finish, and then you can right click on your USB drive and eject it. And now you can take that and put it in your new PC, and when you turn on that computer, should load into the Windows operating installation, as long as you've gone into the BIOS settings and chosen your boot sequence to be your USB stick. Okay, a couple other things we need to do is we'll switch back to easy mode here. Okay, we come down here to where it says Extreme Memory Profile, XMP, and it says it's disabled. We can turn on the XMP1, and then the only really other thing besides checking out all the CPU fans and temperatures and stuff like that is we need to do our boot sequence. Now, right now it's saying there's no bootable device found. All right, after a quick restart and get back into the BIOS settings, there it is. We can select this USB stick and that will give us our boot sequence. Now all we have to do is save and exit, and this time don't press delete, and it will start doing our Windows setup here. All right, because I don't have OBS to screen capture the actual installation process of Windows, I found a little website here that is actually going to be perfect for me scrolling through this pretty quick. And it's very straightforward, but there is one little hiccup in there that I want people to have an easier time, and I thought was absolutely ridiculous. So here we go. Once you turn on your new computer with your USB boot image in there, you're going to be greeted with the Windows installation software. And first thing, you're going to pick your country you're in and your language, click Next, click Install, and at this point it's going to ask you for your product key, so go ahead and put that in. Click Next, accept the terms, install your Windows setup. It's going to ask you where you want it, so you're going to pick your drive that has the largest unallocated space. Click Next, and it's going to ask you what country you're in. Click Yes. Select your keyboard type, click Yes, and here's where the glitch happens. So you're going to get to a screen where it says something about, oops, you've lost your internet connection, or your Ether connection is not working right. And so apparently there's no way to get past this unless you have internet. And for whatever reason, the drivers that they load up don't work with my motherboard. And this is a common thing apparently. So here is a workaround, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, but this does work. So what you're going to do is press Shift and F10 at the same time, and it's going to bring up your command prompt. And you're going to type in this here exactly like this, all uppercase, OOBE / bypass NRO. Okay, and then press Enter. And what's going to happen is it will redo all of the installation process again. However, when you get back to this page where you are saying it's got no internet, you are now going to be able to have an option to be able to say, I don't have internet, which will skip this part. Totally ridiculous, but that's how you get around it. Okay, and then you are going to skip and keep going. It's going to ask you what your name you want for your account, make a password, ask you some recovery questions, and then do all your little settings and click Next and go through those, and then it will load up to your Windows desktop without internet. Okay, so then you're going to go to a computer that has internet, and you're going to type in B760 Gaming Xacto or whatever your motherboard is, support, and then go to the actual website where all the drivers are. Now, in this case, we're looking for internet drivers, so we got WLAN and Bluetooth, so we're going to go down here. We don't need Bluetooth, but we do need the Wi-Fi driver, so that's one right here. We'll download on that, and then you can go to where that file is, right-click copy, put it on your USB stick, right-click paste. Okay, and then you can eject this and take this over to your new computer and plug it in, and then just run that driver, and this is all I had to do to get my internet working. So go ahead and do that. All right, now that we have internet, the very first thing we should do is see if there needs to be any kind of Windows update. So type in the search there, Windows Update. So check for updates, system settings. And looks like there's a bunch of them here. So we're going to go install all and let it do its thing. Okay, in this case it wants a restart now as well, so let's click that. All right, once it reboots, you can type back in for Windows Update and see, and you can see we're all up to date, so we're good there. All right, let's close this. All right, next thing's up here, we're going to download the Gigabyte Control Center, and it keeps popping up here, so let's get rid of it and install it. Okay, click Next. I agree. Finish. Okay, let's go see what we can do in here. Accept. All right, Update Center, this sounds good. We could maybe update a bunch of drivers automatically here. Okay, these are all the possible updates that we could do here. You can turn them off if you don't want to turn certain ones on, or you can just go ahead and hit install and it'll go ahead and do it all. Now, none of this requires a restart, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and say install. And there is one thing in here that I'm actually really wanting, which is our RGB tool. This should be the tool that's going to allow us to change the color of the fans. So I'll click install. So this might take a while, so I'll see you when this is all done. All right, that all finished up, and you can see all the stuff we've installed. And if we go to any update info, you can see there's nothing to update. So, sweet. And if we go back to this page here, you can see we got RGB Fusion. We can control all of our colors for our fans, and there's all kinds of cool stuff in here, all kinds of patterns of different colors. You can even do some custom effects. So really all you do is you select where your header pin is connected, and so mine is right here, hence the rainbow pattern. So you can click on that. And if you need to calibrate it to figure out which one's yours, you can go calibrate and then figure out which one it is. Mine is DLED 2. And so you can see it's saying calibrate it to go to blue because it's blue color. Now it's supposed to be red. Now it's supposed to be green. So you calibrate it, plus you know which one you're doing. So for this guy here, we can just have static colors. We could change it to green to match our plastics in here. And you can go in and adjust the hues too. So you can literally like pick a color that is exactly in here. Just have to kind of like fine tune it. Or maybe purple and green would look really, oh yeah, look at that. That's pretty slick. So that's just static. We could do pulse with that color. We got flash, D-flash. And then you got all your different patterns. So go back to different colors and stuff. And you've also got custom. So you can play around in here and get whatever colors you want. And later on in the build, I think we'll hook up the other fans and the ARGB strips and match them to whatever's going on here too. For now, I think we're gonna leave it on purple though. That looks pretty sick. All right, next up, let's start typing in for our device manager. Should pop up there. All right, now you can take a look through this list, and if there's anything that has kind of a yellow triangle with an exclamation point in it, that's something that the computer doesn't know what it is and that possibly needs some drivers. So now that we've done all our Windows updates, let's take a look and see if there is anything, and I'm not really seeing anything. We could double check though, 4080 Super, we can see if there's an updated driver for it. Search automatically. Best drivers are already installed. We're good to go. And you can just go through all of these sections, and anything that's going to be having any problems will have that symbol next to it. And this is looking all good. That Gigabyte control center, all those updates seem to do the trick for us here. Perfect. All right, moving on. All right, even though that Windows says that our GPU driver is updated and current, we should really download it right from NVIDIA to make sure that we're getting the best experience we can. So what you're gonna do is type in NVIDIA GeForce Experience, and we're gonna download this straight from their site. Okay, and this is the newest version. We're gonna download it. Then go ahead and open it up. Okay, agree and install. Okay, now you're going to have to either put in your email and your password, or if you don't have one, you're gonna have to make an account. So go ahead and do that. Okay, you can use this app, or you can just say not now. All right, you can start the tour, or we can just skip this for now. The very first thing we're wanting to do is get our drivers updated. So go right up to drivers. Okay, and if we scroll down, we have version 551.61. So let's take a look and see if there's a new version. It might be actually the current one already. Okay, there is a newer one right here, so we're gonna download this. This might take a while, so we'll be back after it's done. Okay, and then I would just pick Express Installation. All right, there we go. We've got the latest game drivers ready to go. Now, we may come back to this at a later date, or at least our NVIDIA settings, to get the ultra low latency going and every little final visual tweak we can to make sure our games play and look amazing. All right, so for now, we can kick out of this. Okay, and when you open up your GeForce Experience, it might ask you about upgrading to the NVIDIA app. It's totally up to you, but why not? It's the newest thing. Let's upgrade. Okay, from what kind of driver you want? Well, we're using games. So game ready driver, next, next, next. Well, we just did the upgrade to the driver, so let's see if there's any difference here. Drivers, game ready, and it is up to date, so we don't have to do anything. So we're just basically adding the app for later. All right, sweet. While we're here, let's take a look. Graphics. Yeah, okay, we got some settings in here. Low latency mode. We want this turned on for sure. We're going to turn that on, and we're even going to go to ultra. This is going to make our game even slicker and smoother feeling when we get into our pinball games. So there'll be probably some other stuff in here that we can change once we get our big screen in here and get some gaming going on. So we'll be back to here probably. Right, for this master slave power strip, find some way on the side of the cabinet out of the way, including where the plugs are going to have to come out so it doesn't affect your PC drawer here. And there are 2 screws you're going to put in the back. It should just barely fit into the hole, and then when you slide it over, it shouldn't come out. You can put 2 of these in here, position it where you want it on the cabinet, and then just push really hard and get that to make a little indent for the screws, and then you can pre-drill the holes, screw these in, and adjust how tight the screws need to be so that you can just put it on, and when you slide it to the side, it locks and it seems pretty solid. Take the master slave power strip power cord and wrap it exactly how you want it in the cabinet so that you have exactly what you need for wires. And we're trying to get to this little cutout here for our IEC320 switch, one of these guys. And so once you figure you've got enough material, leave yourself a little bit of leeway, go ahead and make a mark and void your warranty. Yay! So easy to do. All right, next time you see this, this is going to be all wired up. Now I have an excellent video that shows you exactly the wiring you need to do on the back and how to install that, so I'll put the link above for you for that. And in the meantime, we'll do this. Woo! So easy, look at that. No, seriously, if you're not sure, I'm gonna post a picture here for a couple seconds. That is the wiring. All you gotta do is clip the end off, cut about 5 inches off the cable, follow the drawing for the wiring for the back of this IEC320 switch, and then screw it back in. All right, and the last thing we need to do is we need to cut off the little power switch, and on those 2 wires, the yellow and the white, we're going to extend some wires and connect it to our power switch that's underneath the cab. So go ahead and do that, and once you're all done that, we can start cleaning up all the wiring in here. Now to get the other 3 RGB fans connected to the motherboard so we can control the lights and fans on that, really quite easy. There is 2 connections coming out of each of these fans. One is the 4-pin for the actual power for the fan, and then the other one is a smaller 3-pin, which is for the RGB color selection. So what you can do is disconnect the wires, and you just have to daisy chain the 3 pins to the 3 pins and the 4 pins to the 4 pins. And then once you've got all those daisy chained together, we just have to connect it to the motherboard. So let me show you where we connect that. So with the 3-pack of RGB fans, it actually came with a couple different connectors and some splitters. So you want the one that looks like a 4-pin that says 5-volt D and ground, and we're gonna put that to our spot on the motherboard that says D_LED1. So we can control that color of these fans with the RGB fusion. And then over here, we've got one that basically says fan system, fan 3 system. We've got a splitter, so we've got 1 into 3, and then you can connect all the powers from all 3 fans up to these. Then simply go back into RGB Fusion and change the colors to match the other ones that we already did on the PC. At this point, I would put power to the cabinet and then try turning the power on from the button underneath the cab and make sure the PC boots up. Turn on RGB Fusion and get your fans all the right colors and stuff. And once everything is working properly, we can now take this rat's nest and spend some time and clean it all up and make it look amazing. So off camera, I'm gonna take some time and clean this all up. That's a wrap on another video from Way the Wrench, this time on how to get your high-end gaming computer decased and put into your virtual pinball cabinet, get you up to this Windows screen. If you have any questions, put it down in the comment section below and I'll try to help you out as much as possible. What's up next? Man, you know what's next. We are going to install a brand new version of Baller Installer that has the updater, and we're going to have all the newest pinball software on here so that we can get going and start seeing what these things are going to look like with our screens. Super excited. If you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram? That way you can see what's going on in this amazing shop in between videos. Till next time, take it easy.